and have those conversations even when there is no kerfuffle or something happening, you know?
Oh, what?
Kerfuffle. No like drama.
Hang on a minute. I'm a kerfuff. How you spell it? Is 3 F's?
I don't know. I can't spell it for you.
Yo, it's Sarah G, Jessica B, I am Omega, and this is Diverse Clarity. This is where we have those thought-provoking conversations about things that matter and some that don't. And we still have our guest host hanging around, Mr. Vic, all the way from the UK, the man of Miss Jessica, who we heard so much about. Actually, we've mentioned you quite a few times on the podcast, yeah?
Yeah, you have.
Glad you came.
I heard my name a few times.
It was her fault.
In living flesh.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Oh, God. Oh, see, here we go. See, this is perfect. Right? So, with that, how do you two handle conflict in your relationship? This is what we're going to talk about, handling conflict.
Shoot.
Huh?
Oh, lady.
But we had a conversation about it before we got started, right? When we were out having our coffee and everything before we started to record. And I thought it was a pretty good conversation. So I wanted to bring it to the table and hear. So real talk. How do you guys handle it, right? Let me give a scenario first.
Okay.
Because both of y'all sitting there, y'all being too polite. You go. No, you go. Schnookums, you go. Schnookums. And this, that's just too much. Blah. I'm going to throw up on everybody. Like, so let's say Vic is at work. Mm-hmm. And he comes home maybe 7 o'clock in the evening every day.
Okay.
Right? But the brother works hard. I appreciate you, Vic, for working hard, doing what you do. You know what I'm saying? So he works hard. Don't look at him like that. Focus. He works hard. He comes home, right? He wants to eat. He wants to rest, right? So he eats his dinner. He's tired. He falls asleep. But you feel like he's not talking to you enough. You want to unload. You want to talk about your day. You want to tell him all the things that have happened, right? To just let your partner know how you feel. Weeks go by, you don't say anything, right? Few weeks into it, you explode. I want to talk. Wake up. How do you handle it? What's the way you approach it?
I just feel like in terms of this scenario, I don't really know how to, because I know that I would mention it before.
Well, the scenario doesn't have you mentioning it. So, in terms of the scenario.
Okay, if I were to,
how would you approach it? You're tired of it.
I would just, I'd sit him down and be like, hey, I feel like this
look at him. Look at him when you say it.
Hey, I feel like this has been a long time coming. I think we should have a conversation about how, we're getting through the day. I feel like maybe I need a little bit more attention. What can we do about that? How can we go from there? No? Do you not think that's how
You're making it sound too easy.
How would I handle it?
Wait. Okay, pause. Is that how she would approach it?
I mean, there's a likely... Well,
don't look at her. You got the answer.
There's a chance that could be the case, but at the same time, obviously we're all human beings, and that's not sustainable to have that nature. All in all, like you definitely do have the tendency to snap, and I mean, I'm not saying that you've done that. I'm trying to be careful about it.
But you just said I've got the tendency to snap.
We're all human beings, yeah. Like, as much as we try to say this is what we would like to happen, there's a chance that it wouldn't happen that way. And I mean, it's a lifetime commitment. And there's a chance that it's not going to be that way all the time. And there's a chance that we might slip up and do things that are like out of character. So
okay, you being extremely politically correct right now.
I
man, you are struggling. He's like, because if the A molecule and the B molecule meet in the destination of the stop, and then the nuclei has a feeling about it. No, so would that be how she would most? Okay, if it were to be the human being side comes out. Right? Yeah. not that side, like the human, like that natural response, that agitation that you said she has the ability to snap. What would the snap be like? What would that response be?
I don't see her as one that would raise her voice and obviously pass her opinions on to me, but it wouldn't be as plain. It would have some sort of emotions to it.
Example. She's not here. It's okay.
Example is it could obviously lead to a situation where there's a few tears and she's like, I don't feel like you're giving me what I need. And obviously with tears in her eyes, or like with a voice where you're like, damn, like I actually did make her feel upset about the situation. But I don't see it just being a plain conversation. There's probably going to be a build up. Again, you mentioned that over time, she's been piling it up. So I reckon there's going to be some sort of emotions to it.
Is this fair? Is this accurate?
Oh yeah, I'll start crying. Yeah, I should have said that before.
No problem. Okay.
Yep.
How would you receive that?
I think at that point in time, I'm very good at reading situations, and I'm one person that struggled to put my people that I care about in a situation or position where they feel upset. So I reckon I'll take on the message and try at that moment in time to reassure her, and being the person I am that always strive to improve on myself, I would tell her that I'm obviously going to intentionally and actively work on it.
Action. Tell her you're responding to her. She had that emotional response to you about how she's been feeling for 3 weeks. You're acknowledging that. Action.
Yeah. This is where I'm at. Okay. I do take on board what you've said to me. Upon reflection, you're probably correct. And I will do my best to make sure that it doesn't carry on this way.
Wait, hold up, pause, offside, take it, hang on.
Go on.
Is that how you would speak?
Yeah.
I take
it on board. I'm very good at self-reflecting. Yeah. If I feel like it's
but
something.
This is the verbiage that you would use. This is how you.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay. Fair. That's accurate. That's how he.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because again, I feel like with communication, I'm not the best with my words, and I'll say it exactly how my brain has processed the information, and I reflect upon what she said. And if I feel like it's something that I do, then yeah, I'm gonna say it that way. But if it's not something that I feel like I've done, then obviously defense mode comes on, and this is where I ask for like, give me examples.
Right.
I always do that. Give me examples.
Right.
But if it's where I'm able to reflect and see that it's something that I've actually done wrong, then straight away it's okay. I'm gonna work to improve on that.
Okay, so Jessica, you said in the beginning that this probably isn't the way that you would handle it. You're not gonna let it go for 3 weeks like that,
Yeah.
right? And I appreciate that. So if it's not, right, clearly now we're getting back to the question, how you would handle the conflict. So in your mind, this is a conflict because you're conflicted with the way that he's been behaving or not been behaving, right? So how would you approach it before letting it get to a 3 week time span, right? How would you address this?
I think simply, it probably wouldn't go past 2 days.
Right, but how would you?
I feel like I would react the same way that I just said. Even if it had been a couple of weeks, I would try to be calm about it, and just ask what we can do to move forward from it. And maybe also find out whether or not he had also been feeling some kind of way. If this were the situation, I would probably assume that he was upset with me, even though that I know that isn't actually what was happening. So it would just, I'd just be asking for some reassurance, I guess, at that point.
But why would you do that to yourself? Why would you make the assumption? Because you just said two contradicting things. You said, I would make the assumption that he's probably upset with me, even though I know, Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you go in and make that? That kind of goes off of what you said earlier when we talked previously. You said, when time goes by, right? The more, I think we were talking about waiting multiple days or whatever. Mm-hmm. You said when time goes by, you're like, all right, I got to say something, because the more time goes by, you start to have these thoughts in your head and you formulate this whole other story that doesn't, but you just said yourself, you didn't feel that he would, but so you're making an assumption, even though you know that this assumption that you made probably isn't true. Why would you do that to yourself?
I just think I've got a tendency to.
I don't think.
I think sometimes it's self-sabotage. I won't lie.
Mm.
Yeah, point blank, I think a lot of the time it might be self-sabotage, but I'm trying to work on that.
Okay. Sarah, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like we all, excuse me, are going off patterns. Like, when we're in those moments, we're not necessarily always consciously acting the way we'd want to. We're working off patterns of ways we've reacted in the past. So your thought process in that moment is probably like bringing you back to a time where you felt somebody was already upset with you. So you're experiencing that in that moment, even though it's not your reality now, but your body and the way you're going to react because it's what you've been doing. That's how it's going to come across. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So
That's exactly what right before I was going to say, do you think that you're making that assumption because it's a trigger?
Yeah.
I imagine that's what you're getting at, right? It's something from before, right? I've said it in many episodes before. I've said it in my relationship, and I hold myself accountable for this as well. But I know it could sound bad depending on how you perceive it, but I've always said I refuse to pay taxes for somebody else's mistakes, right? But with that, we have to communicate, right? I probably talk too much to my wife. Like, I'm probably like all the time, babe, you know, I feel like this because of this. Like, baby, I think like this because of this. Well, this, like this, like this, and this. I'm always saying stuff, right? The biggest thing, I know I say a lot. And like for her, she's probably like, I can't remember everything. And then what's the one thing that I get upset about? Why you don't remember what I told you how I feel about honeycomb? I told you I like Fruit Loops. Like, and it's just like, yo, I say too much. So maybe it's a trigger. So when I asked the question about how you deal with conflict in the relationship, one of the things, if you were to pose a question to me, is I'm going to do prefabrication work, right? I'm not going to wait for the conflict to happen. I'm proactive, or at least I try to be proactive, right? So I want to ask, are you all this way in your relationships? Are you proactive? Do you preempt something happening? Make an assumption that something could happen, right? Do you preempt it and then try to do work along the way to soften the blow, make it not happen at all, complete prevention? Like, are these ways that you work and ways that you think? Or do you just find yourself in a situation of conflict, of disagreement, right? Of an argument, and then you just react based on the situation? How do you guys approach it?
For me personally, again, this journey of always trying to improve myself is a proactive way of making a statement, in the sense that if I'm able to patch up all my mess, then it leaves less room to actually find yourself in a position where you're having to react to a degree. So if you're able to reduce the chances of obviously causing creating a situation, then that is being proactive in itself. Is more, for me, it's a bigger statement than actually doing work just before you get to that point where it becomes a big situation, if you know what I mean. So if it's a continuous thing, then I feel like that's a more proactive way of dealing with stuff than kind of anticipating in the moment and then trying to obviously work on it.
What do you mean by a continuous thing? Elaborate on that.
So if you continuously build yourself, like in terms of communication, for instance, I'm doing a continuous job on obviously improving that as the day goes on, and I could see my improvement as well. Whereas if I'm the same old person that I used to be, I could act on situations, and I mean, it's not going to be seen as a reaction, because a reaction would be acting after the situation. Being proactive is basically trying to not let the situation happen. So if, for instance, I've been making her feel a type of way with my behavior, but then when I start to notice maybe a change in her behavior due to my behavior, and then I try to make changes, then that's still seen as proactive in my eyes, because I'm not letting the situation get worse. So I'm trying to alter that situation from there on. But if it's a thing that I do every day that I wake up, then I feel like that's a bigger proactive activity compared to obviously trying to patch it up just prior to the explosion.
Right. What would that look like for you? being proactive, or which is the way that you approach it? Like, are you doing a constant check-in? I believe I can say, so I think you said like you and your sister, you guys do check-ins, right? As far as like how things go. So is it life like that for you? Like, do you do check-ins when you're in a relationship? Do you wait for something to happen? Do you overshare? Is it a combination or mixture of the two or three or whatever? Like, how do you handle?
I would say I do check-ins. I do check-ins with myself first, and then I would do a check-in with my partner. And by check-in with myself, I just like every day, part of my personal practice is waking up, like moving my body, taking time to like meditate or like sit with my thoughts, and I journal. Like I do, for me, it seems like I have those conversations even when there is no kerfuffle or something happening, you know?
Oh, what?
Kerfuffle. You know, no like drama.
Wait a minute. I'm a kerfuff. How you spell it? Is 3 F's?
I don't know. I can't spell it for you.
You should.
Sorry, I went in a really roundabout way, but I think with people in my life, I've gotten into a practice of also just checking in with them, kind of like you do with your sister, and just be like, if there was a moment of tension that might not have been an argument or something, be like, how did that make you feel? Or, you know what, actually, like in that moment, I might have felt a little like that made me feel a little anxious, but I didn't know how to bring it up. How would you want me to bring that up with you so that we can move in a more cohesive direction next time, or like avoid conflict? And I know sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I know it sounds like very peaceful and it seems too easy, and it's very bumpy along the way, but I can honestly say I have 1 or 2 relationships in my life that are like that I have that space to do that, and it's so different being able to know that I can come to this person and be like, you know what, I felt like this in that situation. It didn't result in a fight or anything, but like this is how I felt, and like how can we navigate from this space? Like how can we move forward?
The part that I'm slightly struggling with is it's not about your process, but like, yeah, we all have to do self-work, right? We all have to work on ourselves. This is understood. I don't know how to give an example. Let's say taekwondo or jiu-jitsu, right? So I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I barely know how to spell it, right? But I do know that my wife loves it, right? I do know that she belted in jiu-jitsu. Okay. Now, however the belts go, I don't even know this, so I no disrespect to the sport, but however the colors of the belts go, right? Let's just say, I don't know. If there's 9 belts, I think that's better to do numbers. If there's 9 belts, let's just say I'm a number 2. Okay. This means that 3 through 9, I don't know what they bring to the table. They probably gonna leave me up on sight, right? Like I'm done. Okay. So when we talk about the self-help, I can only do work on myself for what I know. And if we're talking about relationships, I'm in a relationship with the other people between these 9 belts, right? I don't know what 3 through 9 knows. So even though I'm working on myself in grades 1 and 2, I still need to venture out. And that is going to be an integral part of my self-help, because I need to know what I could potentially be dealing with, right? In order to respond accordingly. Because I could do all my self-help in levels 1 and 2, go to the beach, pull out a yoga mat, do my thing, eat my whatever, have my chi, whatever it is I do, right? And then when somebody from level 5 approaches me and they got this new elbow move, I'm like, right? I don't know how to react to that. So I kind of have to put myself in that position. If I'm a level 2 and I'm dating a level 5, I need to spend time with that level 5. I need to talk to that level 5. I need to train, if we're talking jujitsu, train with that level 5 so that I'm in a position to be able to defend myself. I'm in a position to be able to offend up to a level 5, right? So while I think it is good that you or anyone will work on themselves and do what they need to do by themselves, we're talking about being in a relationship. So a large part of the work that I think that needs to be done needs to be with that person. You can only shadow box so much. You can only practice dribbling on the basketball court by yourself so much. Who you gonna cross over? Who you gonna dunk on by yourself?
I agree and disagree, but continue.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, it's not even really for to disagree. It's about approach, right? So I'm just saying, if you don't know what I'm capable of, if you're in a relationship with me, and you don't know what has frustrated me, you don't know what trauma I've been through, you don't know my family relationship, you don't know how many children I got floating around the world, you don't know my situation at work. All you know is I like watching The Purge, I like to drive this car, and I work at this place. When all these other things come into play that you have no knowledge of, how are you gonna deal with it? Do you see what I'm saying? You've only trained to say, I know where we can find The Purge for free online and we can stream it. This is your level of knowledge of me and where I work and where I'm from. But when it gets down to, I got trauma because I was adopted. I have trauma because I was in relationships and I got cheated on every single time and I thought I was in love. You don't know anything about, my father wasn't in my life. You don't know anything about this. So you're not equipped to be able to help me, handle me, or walk with me through these things. That's what I'm saying. And like, that's why I say it's not really for agreement or disagreement, because it's like, I would be the only one that could tell you what you don't know about me. I'm the only one that can tell you what's missing. And there's no way somebody could sit and say, well, like, I do agree with that, or I don't. Because if you don't know these things, you don't know these things. If you don't know that I've had these traumas, how you gonna deal with it? Now, you may have knowledge of how to, but I'm just saying in the reference of dealing with these two people in this relationship. So I just think just as equally important as it is for us to work on ourselves, you also need to work with the person that you're in a relationship with so that you can better understand him or her, and you all work on yourselves together. That's all.
I agree. The only thing I want to say is that you can only accept and take into the level that you know. So I understand working, and that's kind of what you were saying, but like the only thing, I think it's almost equal parts, because you have to know yourself enough to now work with your partner. And like you can know yourself from like your personal history, but you need to also understand how you react and respond in these situations enough so that when you are in communication with your partner, you can, you know, analyze if you're being rational to a certain extent. And this is my perspective, you know, like I was in a situation where I was talking to somebody and I felt really anxious when I didn't have when someone say didn't reply. And so in
like
that,
you mean text message or something like that, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
to clarify.
Just making sure you're not talking to them face to face and they're like,
which is different. Yo, no reply.
I got trauma now.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. And yes, I have history. I have all of that. But then part of me was also like, okay, this is the situation. I'm feeling anxious, but I need to deal with my anxiety. And like, yes, we can come after and communicate about how that made me feel and how maybe like we can decide how to navigate going forward. But it's partly for me to understand, like, in these situations, how do I feel and how will I react? Like, am I going to say, well, I thought this happened and you didn't reply? No, it was a thing of like, oh, I feel anxious. I feel uncomfortable. Wow, this is something I need to work on because I can't expect this person to deal with this for me. So I don't know if I'm conveying what I'm wanting to convey.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, you know that people out there got guns, and you need to make sure that you know how to shoot, and you got guns that can combat their guns, and the people that might sneak up on you, you got a knife where you can come at them with a knife. You want to have all your weapons in your tool belt and know how to use yours. Yeah. And then when you go out into the environment, now you're able to deal with whatever you can purge with the best of them. Right. You want to make sure you can do your thing. Right.
Yeah.
This is
essentially.
But what I mean is, if I'm in a relationship with someone, right, and I'm not knowledgeable about what they're dealing with, the things that I've been working on, depending on, it's all about timing, right? Right. The things that I've been working on may not have me in a place where I can deal with or work through because it's newly introduced to me.
Okay.
And it's just going to take more time. And that's why nothing that you're saying is wrong. I don't think that anything that I'm saying is wrong. It's just a different approach to it or our thoughts towards the approach. But I think that, I guess bottom line is they need to be done synonymously.
Yeah.
It needs to be done in parallel. If you're working on one, if you're constantly focused on Jessica, then and you're neglecting yourself, then you're not going to be in the best position to be able to be a working part of that relationship.
Right.
Right? And likewise, if it's Vic and he's just like, I'm all about Vic and I just got to do this and I am Vic and Vic. And when it comes to Jessica, he's like, who? Like, this isn't going to work.
Right.
And it's just going to take more time. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think that that's when people get into conflict that they cannot overcome. And then the relationship is brought to its demise. Like, that's it. Because Vic has been so caught up in himself and he doesn't know how to help or handle or deal with or walk through things with Jessica. And now he's like, she don't let me play my games, man. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of all this dumbness. I'm tired. I just want to call of duty, you know? And she's like, he doesn't understand me. All I want to do is make him wonderful cupcakes and he doesn't want to eat them. I'm spending all this time.
Talk like that?
Oh, I'm sorry. He doesn't understand me. I just want to make cupcakes. Like, that's right. Don't stop. Don't.
Oh gosh.
But really though, like, but I just think it has to be done together. Like that's all I'm saying. Like I don't think one really gets favored over the other unless you're not in a relationship. When you're by yourself, this is the time where you focus 100% on self, and you're getting ready. You're Rocky before the fake Rocky match in the movie. You know what I'm saying? You climbing up the hills in Philadelphia and whatever, right? That's what you're doing when you're all by yourself. But then when you're in a relationship, time automatically has to be split in some kind of way. You have to dedicate.
Agreed.
And some of that time that you're using to work on yourself is going to have to be fractioned off to be with that person. Jessica, what's the biggest conflict that you think you faced in relationships?
In relationships, just like
Relationships. We don't need to identify which one it may be, even though it may be sitting next to you. We don't need to.
No pressure.
Shh. It's just between us.
And the world.
The biggest conflict. Cheating. Yeah.
And did you approach the person about this?
Yes.
You say that like you caught them, like you walked in or something.
No.
You was like,
yes.
You did. Yeah. And so how did like? Can you tell us what? I'm just because that's a common thing, right?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to me not really liking conflict. That I kind of just brushed it under the rug a little bit. And flipped it around to I don't know.
You flip what? The rug?
Like, no.
What are you? What is she?
I just brushed it under the rug and I tried to ignore the
So
very
what happened?
big
What happened?
issue.
What happened? You walked in on it. You
No, I
found
got
text
told.
messages.
I got told.
You got told. So you got told that somebody was cheating on you.
Yeah.
How long were you together?
By the person, 6 years.
The person told you.
Yeah.
Oh, was the okay. Right. Okay. Well, and you didn't. Okay. So was there a situation because you didn't approach this person?
No.
Right. Was there a situation where you act? Because I'm trying to bring in real examples of conflict resolution. Like, so there technically wasn't really a conflict with this situation, right? Like it happened. They told you, you withdrew from the situation and moved on, and here you are on diverse clarity. Yay!
Yeah, I was gonna say they're really going just like that. I didn't really withdraw
It went just like
from
that.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that conflict was never really resolved. But obviously, I also feel like two parties need to be.
But that's what I mean. So I'm saying another example because you didn't resolve it. That's what I mean. You pulled away from it. Like it wasn't ever resolved. It happened, and you did what you needed to do to move on, and that's what you've done. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very
So,
much. Yes.
But Vic, what about you? What's the largest obstacle that you've overcome in a relationship? A conflict where you had to go in and resolve it. How'd you work it out?
I mean, looking at my history, to be honest, I haven't been the greatest because I tend to put most of the time, well, who I used to be. I don't know if I've obviously outgrown that now, but who I used to be is putting other people's feelings before mine, because the element of care and love comes first. So I found myself in, take for instance, my previous relationship where I was in it for a duration, where I was just in it for love. And let's be honest, I'm one person that preached just now that love is never enough in a relationship. To keep that relationship going, there has to be communication, there has to be respect, and there's other elements to it as well. But yeah, I was in it solely just for love, and that just didn't work out because I found myself in situations where I wanted to say more. I wanted to express how I felt, but I was always in my head about, I could say this and it could make that person feel a type of way, and then I'm going to have to comfort them for expressing how I felt about things. So looking at my history, I haven't had the greatest in that sense, but having kind of outgrown that phase, I feel like I'm maybe in a better place to handle conflict in a more, I don't know, more managed manner, in the sense that there's always that period of reflection of what could be done to always improve. I don't know if I'm deflecting.
Yeah, you are.
I am.
So
ask questions.
Give me an example of one of the greatest conflicts that you've had to overcome in a relationship. How did you handle it?
Overcome.
Yeah.
Again,
it doesn't have to be about somebody sitting next to you, or it can. What you want me to say? I don't know.
I don't know if I could say that I've overcome conflicts successfully in my history, in the sense that, again, it's what I mentioned about expressing myself and not expressing myself the way I would like to. So I've been in a position where I needed to voice my opinions on our sex life, for instance, but I've held back. So that's created obviously conflicts going forward. But and my way of expressing that was to verbally say, well, I was trying to paint a picture and that didn't end up well. And I feel like we didn't even get to resolve that. It had to be brushed under. I brushed that under because I wanted to move forward, and their feelings are prioritized over mine. And so I wouldn't say that I've successfully actually overcame anything major in that sense. We haven't been faced.
I disagree.
Do you?
Yeah, because I feel like we've both done that in this relationship. I just
Major.
can't think of it. Yeah.
You can give an example. I don't mind. Give me one.
I don't even know if I have an example.
Wait, what you just said?
Like, no, because this is where like we clash when it comes to resolving conflict as well, because I can't give examples.
Okay, fair enough.
I just really struggle to give examples.
Okay,
like I'm on pressure and I'm like,
yeah, but you clearly recalled something because you just told him he was wrong. You was like, no, we ate McDonald's. Remember, you had the nuggets.
For example, our conversation last night, we had conflict.
Oh, we do have conflicts, but I think the way you worded it, you said a major conflict, right?
I mean, that's subjective.
It's subjective.
Right. So
but it wasn't a conflict that I feel could have, well, to be fair, yeah, it was bad because okay, fair enough. Okay. We could see it as that, but obviously it gets to the point where I kind of quantify it and I feel like a
puppy when he's watching people talk.
But we had a conflict about, again, not being able to get examples and educated when I ask for it. And the way we resolved it was, in the end, reflecting on why it got to where it got to. And we I stepped back for a bit, she stepped back for a bit, and we were able to come forward one after the other. Whereas when we initially tried to resolve it, we were both speaking, but no one was listening. But in the end, she stepped forward and said what she needed to say. I stepped forward and said what I needed to say. And then in the end, we were able to figure out where we both could have done better to avoid that whole situation.
And how we avoid it.
Going forward.
Yeah.
And how do you avoid it going forward? Because anybody listening and watching, that might be a tool and tactic that they can put in their Batman tool belt, like Sarah has over here. So
I don't know, because I feel like one of the points that I have made I think I mentioned a little bit earlier on throughout this episode about how conflict, like I panic as soon as I'm faced with conflict. So when Vic had been asking me for examples, I had told him that I can't give examples because as soon as any kind of conversation that I know that is going to be an intense conversation, I go into automatically start panicking, and then I'm not thinking. So I'm just trying to figure out what I'm saying next, and I'm not actually taking anything in, and then I'm not able to give any examples because I've not retained any of it. Like the whole conversation is a blur.
Have you always been like this?
Yeah.
Always?
Yeah.
As long as you can?
As long as I can remember. I may not have always been like that, but also I feel like I've always avoided conflict. This relationship has
exposed you to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, why it's hard is because one of my biggest fears in life is obviously not facing a situation where I know I'm just fully innocent of something, but I'm not being able to prove it. Being in a situation where I'm falsely accused, but not being able to prove that I'm actually innocent. And it's a big fear of mine. And that's why sometimes I do ask for examples, so I'm able to actually reflect and say, okay, right, I might have done the wrong thing in this, but I feel like I don't want to be accused without any sort of evidence behind it.
Right.
Because sometimes you say these things and I'm like, I can't remember doing that, but
this is a logical, this is a logical approach to it. Whereas, okay. Now I'm now I'm tracking. Okay, man, like you gotta. Hey, listen, man. Like, I'm on belts 1 and 2. Okay, y'all operating on 3 to 9. Okay, you gotta give me a little bit. Okay, now I get it. So it's if an accusation is made and it is more, what's the word I'm looking for? A vague. Yeah. Right. If it's a vague accusation, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, or maybe it's up for perception of the person that is speaking. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Right. So like if a person says, and this is not about them, I don't know, but like if a person says, let's say the woman in the relationship, she says, "You always doing blah 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 blah." Okay, it might not be always. You might have done it a couple of times in the past week, and then it's just like in her. What?
Now I'm looking at you thinking, have you heard that before?
Did I hit a nerve? But so like if in the last 2 weeks you've done something 3 times that she doesn't like, and then she finally decides to say something about it, and she says, "You always doing this, you always blah blah blah," and it's like, what? I'm not always. Your perception of always could potentially mean the entire relationship, whereas for her, it's just happened a lot in the last 2 or 3 days. Right? Fair? You know what I mean? So I can appreciate where you're coming from when you say, I need examples. I need exactly what it is you're talking about, because I might not even have done what it is that you're talking about. You might have just thought that's what it was. Right? So it could have been something like, every time I walk in the room, you grab your phone and put it to the side. Yeah, I put it on silent because I don't want anybody to interrupt. Like, what we doing? Because we know we're about to have talking time. Her perception could have been every time you just walk in the room, you grab your phone. She's not paying attention or knowing what it is that you're doing, that you're putting it on vibrate or silent for y'all to have a conversation. But her perception could have been, you always just grab your phone. Every time I walk in the room, you grab your phone.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting because even in that, the way like you would approach it could be different too, rather than saying like, not you specifically, but like, for example, the phone example, if I came at you saying you always touch your phone, whatever, it's very accusatory versus like, you know what, I feel neglected when you take your phone before you say hi to me, or like saying like, putting the onus on like how you feel versus like you do this, or like the actual action can actually kind of sway the way the reaction of the person, you know? And that's something I've had to learn, like being like, okay, I feel this way when this situation happens. So it's not even really the situation, it's how I feel about the situation, how I perceive it, like you said.
Right.
But sorry, I really didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
it's fine. That's perfect. Like I was going on that route. Look, I think that anytime somebody approaches a situation, if you approach it with accusations, you've opened the door for conflict already. Like that's just what it is. Even if you're 100% right, even if you got proof with pictures, voice notes, you got 5 witnesses, you still have opened the door for conflict, and it's not going to be taken well because you've come in with that approach. I mean, I don't know. Like that's all like hypothetical stuff and whatever. But the way that you guys handle it, though, right? So you have a situation where you're asking for examples. She's
As
not
an example.
Well, no. I mean okay, but you're asking for examples because she has said something about you, or she's made an accusation or whatever about you, right, or towards you, and she can't give you those. Then what do? You just sit there and be like, all right, well, we just gonna sit here until something comes to you? Like, how do you get through that? Because you clearly can't respond to it if you're saying, I don't think that I've ever done that. And she's like, I can't give you no exact examples of when you have done it. You just always do it. Like, how does that work? She's like,
Because I don't
Why are you looking
say
at me like that?
always. Because I don't say
It's
always.
tricky, you know.
Okay.
And I mean,
I don't say always, and I don't say you never do this. And if I do, then I stop myself and I take a step back.
But it's because we've had a conversation about it in the past.
And
It's 99% untrue when they say you always.
Right, but
you
then
just don't do it to their standards.
also in terms of when it comes to accusing you, say for example, Vic likes to not have his phone up on the dashboard. So in the car, he'll either have it down here or he'll put it down the side. For me, just because I have sometimes I need reassurance, I didn't straight away say, oh, you always take your phone and you put it down the side and like you're hiding something from me. I just said, like, I feel a little bit stressed when you do that. Like, what's the reason that you do that? And then we had a conversation about it. I feel like it was not. I just feel like sometimes I'm not accusing you. And then I still wouldn't have been able to give an example of when you did it, though. I just know that when we went into the car, a few of the times that you had done it, but I couldn't be like, on Monday at 7:15 you did this, and on Wednesday I don't, because I don't remember things.
The logical side to that is if I had anything to hide, my phone's always connected to my car, wired or not. So if anything was to go on that phone, it would come on my dash.
I think the really interesting thing between you guys, though, like that I'm like as a third party, just like fly on the wall, is like this is a cool environment because now you have the opportunity to understand why he needs examples, and it's not just to be petty or to be like, but it's like it triggers a fear in him that he's not going to be, that he'll be like falsely accused, and now you have the opportunity to understand why she can't give you those examples in that moment because it makes her panicked and nervous and fearful. So it's like you both have a deeper understanding of like why these things would potentially cause conflict and how to, now you can have time to like talk about how we navigate, because both of us will be in our like defensive, fearful space if we approach each other like that.
That's interesting as well. Because take, for instance, last night, even with the examples, I didn't get them. So I feel like with that, I need to compromise. You couldn't give me examples last night. So the reason why sometimes as well I ask for examples is because anyone could accuse anyone of doing anything.
True. Yes.
And I like logic. So if you're accusing me of stuff, it's good. It's nice for me to be able to say, okay, to hear you say, this is when you did something similar. And then I could actually have the chance to reflect, because if there's nothing to reflect upon, then essentially, if I'm going to apologize to you, then it wouldn't even come from my heart. I'll just say it to diffuse the situation. And I don't reckon it should be that way. In my opinion, anyway, it shouldn't be that way. So if you're saying I did this and this and this and this, then you should be able to give me instances. And I feel like, again, maybe the way I am, and I'm a very scientific, logic-based man, and everything I do, I have to see it. I'm a visual learner as well. So we learn from being hands-on, like you mentioned. So if you're painting this picture and I'm not seeing what pictures you're painting, and you're not able to back it up with any sort of evidence, then it's harder for me to kind of relate to what you're saying.
Can I just
go
on? I wanna say something. Get to close out. I mentioned this when we were having coffee earlier, but you saying it just gave me a different perspective of the same thing that I had already said. You guys know when you go to the eye doctor, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they give you like this book, right? And you're supposed to flip through the book, and they're like, all right, what do you see? Sometimes it's like a bunch of dots, and it might be a number 7 in the dots. Or you got like the picture, and then the picture, it's like an ink thing, and you got to flip the picture. And some people, it's like, I see an elephant in the clouds, and the other person's like, I see a seagull eating a fish. And it's just like, God damn, you blind. yo, what's up? Right? So what I said earlier, and you'll know what I'm talking about, but what I said earlier was like, even if you're breaking down something, like down to the infinite morsel, right? It's like we're talking about taking sap out the tree and then how things are made or whatever. If you don't understand even that, you're like, what's sap? Like, I don't, like down to that. You could be looking at the same, you said you need a picture. You could be looking at the same picture and see something completely different. So now we go back to what I was saying with you. Yeah, we have to understand ourselves. But the moment we open ourselves up to a relationship, right? The moment we become adults and we say, I'm in this. I love you. I'm in this, right? This is mine. My relationship. The onus is on you. You have to be an adult. There's a percentage of 100% that you dedicate to you. And now you need to look at this relationship you're in and knock it down to whatever it needs to be to know what you need to give for that relationship. And the fact that I can hold up a picture to both of you and I say, tell me what you see. And you see an elephant in the clouds and you see a seagull eating a fish. That tells me, right, that's where I need to put a whole lot of work, because we're looking at the same thing and we're perceiving something different. So no matter how logical, because I know we both are, no matter how logical you are, and I'm pointing at myself too, it doesn't mean that when you explain it and you finalize your logic, your logic approach, it doesn't mean that she's gonna understand it the way that you outlined it or the way that you curated it for her, right? And no matter how much you explain and blame or you have proof even of something, it still might not look exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, he grabbed his phone. He was whatever every time he came in the room. In your mind, those are all true. But in true action, he was just putting it on vibrate, respecting you, because he didn't want anything to happen. No email notifications, no nothing, because he knew you were about to have a conversation. And no, this did not happen. Just an example. But you see what I'm saying? So like everything that you said was right, but it wasn't actually what was happening in that example. And everything that you explained was clear, but she still saw a seagull eating a fish, right? So I think that every relationship, you just have to look at who you're with and how you guys get along and figure out what's the best way for the two of you, or in some relationships, the three of you, to communicate and do what you do. Yeah? What do y'all think?
I agree. Yeah.
And thank you guys for being so open about your like
Oh, it's in the
relationship.
contract. No, I'm joking.
But I mean, it is hard just to talk about. Even I find myself here sometimes, like I know what I want to say, but it doesn't always come out. And to be here and share and be open enough to have this dialogue about your partner,
You
like
do fine. Everything comes out. You
sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm talking in a circle, but
No,
that's
you
okay.
don't.
In my mind, it makes sense, you know. But
see. She thought she drew an abstract picture, and I saw the Mona Lisa. See,
Yeah.
I'm saying, like,
you're just on fire today, okay? But no, I just wanted to say thank you for being open, because I know
Thank
it can
you.
be hard and feel like you're on the spot when you're here. But like it's nice. It's nice to see people having these dialogues that are tough now, you know. But yeah,
Pleasure.
yo, it's Sarah G, Jessica B. I'm Omega, and thank you, Vic, for stopping by again. And this is Diverse Clarity. This is where we have those thought-provoking conversations about things that matter and some that don't. We will catch you next episode.